11:28 in the morning, a torpedo began to leak inside this submarine. 118 men were aboard. 23 survived the explosion, and their government left them on the bottom of the sea. 108 meters down, at the bottom of the Barents Sea, the ninth compartment of the submarine Kursk was still sealed. Inside it, 23 men were alive. They had survived 2 explosions powerful enough to tear the front third of their vessel apart. Now they sat in the dark, in the cold, and did the only thing their training gave them. They waited. One of them, Captain-Lieutenant Dmitri Kolesnikov, took out a piece of paper. On it he wrote, "All personnel from sections 6, 7, and 8 have moved to section 9. There are 23 of us here. We have made this decision because none of us can escape." And then, lower on the page, in handwriting that was already failing, "It's dark to write here, but I'll try by feel. It seems there are no chances. 10, 20%. On the surface, the Russian Navy knew almost immediately that the Kursk was down. Rescue ships would later report what their sonar operators heard coming through the water. Tapping. Rhythmic, deliberate tapping. The international signal for, "We are alive." This is the story of why nobody came in time, and why, for days, Russia lied about all of it. August 2000. The Kursk was the pride of Russia's Northern Fleet, an Oscar II-class submarine longer than 2 jumbo jets, built to hunt American aircraft carriers and considered by her crew to be unsinkable. That week, she joined the largest Russian naval exercise since the fall of the Soviet Union. Her task on the morning of August 12th was simple: fire a practice torpedo at a target ship. The torpedo she carried for that job was a Type 65, a weapon so old-fashioned that most Western navies had abandoned its design decades earlier. It ran on high-test peroxide, a propellant that is cheap, powerful, and notoriously unstable. If it touches rust, or copper, or a bad weld, it doesn't burn. It detonates. At 11:28, inside torpedo tube number 4, a faulty weld gave way. Peroxide met catalyst. The torpedo's engine exploded with the force of roughly 100 kilograms of TNT, and fire filled the torpedo room. For 135 seconds, the Kursk was wounded but alive, diving toward the seabed as the fire raged against the warheads stored around it. Then the fire reached them. 5 to 7 torpedo warheads detonated at once, an explosion measuring over 3.5 on the Richter scale, picked up by seismic stations as far away as Alaska. The blast tore open the first 3 compartments and killed most of the crew in seconds. The Kursk hit the bottom at 108 meters, 350 feet of cold, dark water, shallow enough that a diver could reach her. And that is what makes everything that happened next unforgivable. The Navy knew the Kursk had missed her scheduled radio contact by early afternoon, but for more than a day, they told no one. Not the government's press, not the families, not even the search ships were told the truth of what the seismographs had already recorded. When the Navy finally admitted something was wrong, 2 days later, the official statement said the submarine had descended to the ocean floor due to minor technical difficulties. The crew, they said, was in contact. There was air. There was power. The situation was under control. Almost none of that was true. President Vladimir Putin, 4 months into the job, was on holiday at a resort in Sochi. He was informed within hours of the sinking. He stayed on holiday for 5 more days. Within a day of the news breaking, Britain offered its LR-5 rescue submersible, a vehicle built precisely for this. Norway offered deep-sea divers. Both were hours away. Russia said no. The official reasons shifted by the day: the weather, the currents, national security. The Navy insisted its own rescue capsules could do the job. Capsules that failed, dive after dive, for 4 straight days, unable even to latch onto the escape hatch. In the garrison town of Vidyayevo, the families were given the same fiction on state television that the rest of the country got. When one mother stood up at a Navy briefing and screamed that they were lying, she was sedated, injected through her coat, on camera, and carried out of the room. That footage escaped. The story about the minor technical difficulties did not survive it. Only on August 16th, 4 days in, did Russia accept foreign help. The Norwegian dive ship Seaway Eagle turned toward the Barents Sea. The Norwegian divers reached the wreck on August 20th. The hatch the Russian Navy had failed to open for a week. They opened it in about 6 hours. Compartment 9 was flooded. All 23 men were dead, and had been for days. The evidence pointed to a flash fire, an oxygen regeneration cartridge. The device meant to keep them breathing had touched the oily water and ignited, consuming what little air was left. How long they survived before that is still argued. The official report said hours. Independent analysts, reading the evidence of the tapping, said days. Either answer is long enough for a rescue that was offered on day 1. Kolesnikov's note came up with his body. The Navy read it, classified parts of it, and at first told the public it didn't change anything, that the men would have died regardless. A month later, asked on American television what had happened to his submarine, President Putin smiled slightly and gave a 2-word answer: she sank. A year later, a Dutch salvage consortium raised the Kursk from the seabed. Russia cut the mangled bow section off and left it on the bottom, along with, critics said, the clearest evidence of what the state had known and when. The final investigation, in 2002, admitted what leaked documents had said from the start: a faulty torpedo weld. Not a NATO collision, as admirals had claimed for 2 years. Their own weapon, their own maintenance, their own lie. No admiral went to prison. The investigation was closed without charges. The Kursk became the template for how the new Russia would handle catastrophe. Deny, delay, refuse help, control the story, and count on the world to move on. 118 men died on the Kursk, 95 of them in the first 3 minutes. The other 23 sat in the dark, tapping on the hull, writing notes to their wives by feel, while the help that could have reached them was told it wasn't needed. Kolesnikov's note ended with a line addressed to no one in particular. It said, "Regards to everybody. No need to be desperate." This has been Cold Case Unfold. Subscribe. The next file is already open.